The stock price for a Virginia-based corporation called K12 Inc. dropped almost 40% in a single day. That was October 9th. 2 days later, as I'm recording this segment, the stock price hasn't recovered. Now, why should we worry about the fortunes of a Virginia corporation? Well, the reason is K12 Inc. is the parent company for Arizona Virtual Academy and the 4,000 students scattered around the state who are in the school. Many of the schools get very little education, many of the students get very little education, and some of them get none at all. The reason behind the stock's tumble helps explain what's wrong with K12 Inc. and what's wrong with schools like Arizona Virtual Academy that it runs across the country. Now, Arizona Virtual Academy is an online charter school. The state pays for every student enrolled, and because it's an online school, there are no buildings, there are no classrooms, there's little or no face-to-face contact between teachers and students. The students get their lessons from their computers at home and from textbooks the school provides, and the teachers, they work out of their homes or they sit in some office building somewhere in Arizona, miles, hundreds of miles away. The student-teacher ratio, well, at most schools, in most districts, is about 25-1, give or take 5. At Arizona Virtual Academy and at K12 Inc., the student-to-teacher ratio is 50-1, double where it is elsewhere. But that's even deceptive because some teachers have as many as 300 students on their class list. Try to get to know 300 students when you've never seen them face-to-face. It's not going to work. Now, Arizona Virtual Academy doesn't run its own school. All the money it gets from the state, it sends over to Virginia to K12 Inc., and K12 Inc. does all the hiring, it does all the firing, it sets up the curriculum, and basically runs a school from top to bottom. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm against online education because I'm a bit of a techie and I was an early adopter for computers in the classroom and internet and things of that nature, but total online education is unsuitable for most students. And the students at Arizona Virtual Academy, I'd say maybe 15 or 20% of them get a good education because they're self-motivated. They have one parent that stays at home and that parent is educated enough and works well enough with the child that the parent can give them the education that they're not getting from a teacher that they have face-to-face. But let's face it, 80 to 85% of the students are totally unsuited for this. So what happens? The test scores at K12 Inc. schools all around the country are abysmal. Here in Arizona Virtual Academy, the school was on academic probation with the state last year. And 1/3 to 1/2 of the students drop out every year. Now, the reason K12 Inc. will recruit students who aren't well suited, and they know they're not well suited for this kind of online education, is the corporation needs to make a profit. And it makes a profit by having more students. More students, more state funds, more money. It's very simple. And if students go for weeks without even logging in, without even signing in, the teachers are told, leave them on the rolls. If the student doesn't turn in assignments, leave them on the rolls, do everything you possibly can if you can pass them, but if you can't pass them, keep them in the school long enough that we'll be able to get the state money, and then they can go back to their old schools. And often when they go back to their old schools where they were before, they're further behind than they were when they came here. Recruiters, or when they came to Arizona Virtual Academy, recruiters go after specifically students who are borderline dropouts, students who are special ed students, who are easy mark for the pitch that are done by the call centers. It's very, 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 they give them information that simply isn't accurate to try to lure parents in there when they know very well the students won't succeed. So the question is, why did K12 Inc. stock fall by almost 40%? Well, here's the answer. They have about 128,000 students nationwide. And with 1/3 to 1/2 of those students leaving every year, K12 Inc. has to find 40,000 to 60,000 new students just to stay even. And staying even isn't good enough because their stockholders expect them to grow in students, so they grow in profits. Well, they just put out their quarterly information, and they were below projections. They were below projections in terms of student enrollment, excuse me, and in terms of profits. They grew in student enrollments and they grew in profits, but not enough. And there is the story in a nutshell. When you're a for-profit school, you've got to keep growing, because if you don't keep growing, you're failing the stockholders. They're going to sell your stock. The program is going to die. And so basically, it's no surprise that the quality of the education and the success of the students are secondary to the corporation's bottom line. Now, the way K12 Inc. and Arizona Virtual Academy misuse online education is scandalous. I've done a lot of reading on it. I've done a lot of writing on it. I was actually responsible for them changing one of their policies where they were outsourcing student essays to India to be commented on and scored. But you know, they really need to answer for their educational malpractice. And there's one man in Arizona who's in the position to do that, and that man is Craig Barrett. Craig Barrett is the former CEO of Intel. He is a chairman of Governor Brewer's Arizona Ready Education Council, and he's one of 9 people who sit on K12 Inc.'s National Board of Directors. Now, Barrett is the governor's spokesman, and he's an advocate for education in the state, yet he never talks about K12 Inc. and the problems with it. Mr. Barrett, you should talk about it. You should face up to it.